Welcome to Pompeii Unveiled. Pompeii is a window into the past, buried under volcanic ash from Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. It was preserved for centuries. This city gives us a unique look at Roman life. We learn about their daily activities, social structures, and intriguingly, their attitudes towards sexuality. Sexuality in Pompeii was openly depicted. Art, objects, and buildings reveal much about their norms and practices. These insights help us understand the broader Roman world. They show us how integrated sexuality was in their culture. Exploring Pompeii's sexuality is fascinating. It breaks taboos and challenges modern perceptions. This essay takes you on a journey through the erotic art, everyday items, and public spaces of Pompeii. We will see how these elements reflect and influence the ancient society. Moving on to the artistic depictions of sexuality in Pompeii. Pompeii's art is rich with sexual imagery. Frescoes and mosaics show explicit scenes. These were not hidden away but displayed in public and private spaces. This tells us a lot about their views on sexuality. It was not something to be ashamed of, but celebrated. One famous example is the fresco from the house of the Vetti. It shows Priapus, the fertility god, weighing his oversized phallus. This image was in the entrance, greeting visitors. Such depictions were meant to bring good luck and prosperity. They also indicated the homeowner's wealth and status. Erotic art was also found in bathhouses and taverns. These places were social hubs. The art served as a conversation starter and entertainment. It normalized sexual imagery, making it part of everyday life. This openness contrasts sharply with many modern societies. In everyday objects. Sexuality in Pompeian daily life. Pompeians used everyday objects decorated with sexual motifs. Lamps, cups, and amulets often had erotic designs. These objects were not just for the wealthy, they were common in many households, indicating widespread acceptance of sexual imagery. For example, oil lamps in the shape of phalluses were popular. They were believed to ward off evil spirits. These lamps were practical and symbolic. They show how sexuality was woven into daily activities. It was both a utilitarian and cultural aspect of life. Amulets depicting sexual acts or organs were also common. They were worn for protection and fertility. These items reveal the intersection of sexuality and superstition. They highlight how deeply ingrained these beliefs were in Pompeian society. Lastly, in architectural structures reflecting sexual norms, Pompeii's architecture also reflects its sexual norms. Brothels were an integral part of the city. The most famous is the lupanar. It had small rooms with stone beds and explicit paintings above the doors. These indicated the services offered inside. The presence of such establishments was not controversial. Prostitution was legal and regulated. Brothels were centrally located, showing their acceptance. They were frequented by men of all social classes, indicating a normalized aspect of sexual life. Homes also had private rooms for sexual activities. These were decorated with erotic art, similar to public spaces. The distinction between public and private sexuality was blurred. This integration suggests a society comfortable with its sexual practices. Section 5. Influence of sexual norms on social and political life. In Pompeii, sexual norms had a profound influence on social life. Public spaces, believe it or not, were filled with sexual imagery, which significantly affected how people interacted and related to one another. People were, in fact, more open to discussing and displaying sexuality, and it wasn't just social life that was impacted. Political life felt the effects too. Powerful men often used sexuality to assert dominance. Phallic symbols, for instance, were a common feature in political propaganda, conveying strength and virility. These symbols were a way for men to demonstrate their power and status. Moreover, sexuality was a tool for social mobility. Courtesans, for example, could gain influence through their relationships and played significant roles in political circles. This really shows how intertwined sexual and social dynamics were in ancient Pompeii. Sexuality was integrated into Pompeian religious practices. Temples often had erotic art. The worship of fertility gods was common. These deities were believed to bring prosperity and protection. Sexual acts were sometimes part of religious rituals. The Temple of Venus is a prime example. Venus was the goddess of love and beauty. Her temple had many erotic statues and decorations. Worshippers offered gifts and performed rituals to gain her favor. This shows how sexuality and religion were linked. Festivals also had sexual elements. The Lupercalia, for example, involved rituals to promote fertility. Participants believed these acts would ensure good harvests and healthy offspring. This blend of sexuality and spirituality highlights the holistic nature of their beliefs. Gender roles in Pompeii were complex. Men had more freedom, but women also played significant roles. Sexuality was part of this dynamic. Men were expected to be dominant. This was reflected in art and literature. Women had a more nuanced position. While some were restricted to domestic roles, others gained power through sexual relationships. Courtesans and priestesses had influence. They could maneuver within the social structure, using their sexuality strategically. Gender dynamics were fluid. There was room for negotiation and power exchange. This flexibility contrasts with the often rigid gender roles in other cultures. It shows a society where personal agency could intersect with societal expectations. Pompeii is full of intriguing stories. One lesser-known fact is the presence of graffiti. Walls were covered in writings about love and sex. These inscriptions provide a candid look at personal lives. They range from romantic verses to crude jokes. Another interesting aspect is the sexual symbolism in public decorations. Phallic symbols were everywhere. They were considered protective and powerful. These symbols were not hidden but proudly displayed. Anecdotes add color to our understanding. For instance, the story of a wealthy baker and his wife. Their house was filled with erotic art. It showed scenes of passion and intimacy. This couple used art to express their relationship and status. These personal touches make Pompeii's history vivid and relatable. Pompeii reveals a lot about ancient sexuality. It was open, integrated, and celebrated. Art, objects, and architecture all reflect this. Sexual norms influenced social and political life. Religion and gender dynamics were also deeply intertwined with sexuality. Comparing ancient and modern views, we see differences and similarities. Modern societies often treat sexuality as private or taboo. Pompeii shows us an alternative. It was a society where sexuality was a public, accepted part of life. This challenges our perceptions and invites reflection. Understanding Pompeii helps us understand ourselves. It shows how cultural norms shape our views on sexuality. It also reminds us that history is full of diverse perspectives. Exploring these can broaden our understanding of human experience.